too, because to me that's the
do you like start jamming first, and then, or do you just say, do you start writing, or do you go, well, I have words to a song, or do I have a riff, or do I have...
To me, that's the talent I'm most in awe of. Like, there's a ton of great guitar players and a ton of great singers, and I love so many of my favorites. But to me, like, okay, I understand you could learn to do this and that. But to be able to sit there and create like that is really, like... I don't know. Who wants to take it? Richie?
Well, let Richie go, because he's doing a lot on his own.
Well, we'll talk to Richie and we'll get Mike's thoughts. Go ahead, Rich.
Man, well, a lot of what you said, sometimes it starts with a piano riff or a vocal or a melody or an idea. But the thing is the inspiration. I don't write something unless it writes itself. And what I mean by that, because I'm doing it on my own, sometimes whatever it is that happens, I'll sit down at the piano and mess around, and suddenly, within the course of an hour, there's a song that wasn't there before that I created. Or with a guitar riff, weird things happen. Sometimes when I'm asleep, I hear things and I wake myself up and just come up with a melody and a lyric. That's happened to me several times, and I've put songs on records like that. I sleep with a recorder by my bed and put it down next day I can wake up and listen to it. If it develops, cool. If it doesn't, it sits there. But it just kind of happens naturally,
Mike, for Triumph, did you guys write as a trio all together, or did someone kind of steered the ship in writing?
It was too hard. Three guys in a room trying to write a song is like a nightmare. So, Rick and Gil used to do a lot together, and then when they had something that was listenable, I'd come in and go, okay, let's do this with it, and I throw my 2 cents worth in, and then Rick and I go work out guitar riffs together without the dumb drummer there, and those kinds of things. So it was always a collaborative effort, but everybody would bring in their own ideas, and then we try and triumphize them and make them sound like the band.
How do you tell someone in a band that their stuff sucks?
Mike, you got the best story, that Bissonette story, if you can tell it. That's the best story ever, man! About something to do with Van Halen, which is the best story. And when Mike tells it, and the look on his face when he tells it,
I told that like 90 times.
It's great. You still should tell it.
I want to hear
Richie doesn't know it.
I don't know it.
Come
this
on,
is a legend.
One more time.
All right, so I guess.
This is a great story. Go, Mike.
I guess Van Halen was collaborating for their reunion, the 2 songs they did on the Greatest Hits or whatnot, and they were writing the Me Wise Magic and another one and whatnot.
Another awful one.
So I guess one day the story goes that Eddie had kind of a writer's block, and just a block or whatever. And I guess he wasn't flowing. So he says to Dave, he says, do you ever have just write down, or sometimes I write poetry or a verse, and then I try to improvise music to that. And so Dave goes, well, is that what you did on Van Halen 3? And he goes, yeah, I did that. And he goes, well, don't do it on that record, because it sucks!
Oh, my God.
But, it sucks!
Can you just imagine, that conversation? Like, you're just back into the band, and you're talking to Eddie Van Halen about what you're going to do, and you just bait him in like that, and you just slam him. He sucked! You just picture Roth. When
and Mike, I'm just a messenger. That's just what I heard. So I can't verify that. I don't know if it ever happened, but it's kind of funny to think about.
I just picture Roth, in his Diamond Dave outfit when he did that, too, for some reason. You got that whole visual. It's too funny.
But, it was serious note about that. Is it like... Well, again, because you're more of a soul, but when you work with bands, like when someone goes, hey, I got a great idea, check this out, and everyone's kind of like...
I'll tell you something.
How do you handle that?
I say, what I usually do is
say...
I just say, have you listened to a Led Zeppelin record recently? Or a Deep Purple record? Or a Mr. Big record?
I'll tell you something that works,
though. A lot of stuff is very similar sometimes.
I see, yeah.
What really works for a band, and I don't know how you did it, but I learned this being in 2 different bands that work 2 different ways. The band Poison, the way they did it was whoever wrote the song, and oftentimes me being the guitar player when I was in the band wrote the song, the melody, the lyrics, everything. The minute you bring it in, and Brett as well had situations like this, the minute you bring the song, it becomes a Poison song regardless. Everybody got an equal cut of it. And so everybody had a say in it, and at that point people were less likely to rip it apart and ruin it sometimes, because they knew they were a part of it no matter what happened. So they would, the drummer would be more inclined to what do you have in mind for the drums, Rich? And then all of a sudden throw his thing in. Whereas in Mr. Big, it was the opposite. So, if I brought a song in, I got all the publishing. If Eric brought it in, he got all of it. So you ended up with this weird kind of underlying competition with people trying to get songs on the record. And on the last record that I put Shine on, I pretty much isolated myself from it altogether, and I ended up with two, Shine and Wake Up, which Shine was the first single. But that kind of formula to me doesn't work as well in a band. I think if it's going to be a band and you're willing to, live by the sword, die by the sword kind of thing, I think that works.
Well, did you guys do that, Mike, and Triumph? Was it an equal split on the publishing? Because that's what ultimately, whenever you hear the drama of bands that go on, 99% of the time it's over money, publishing, splitting up, stuff like that. As a trio, you guys didn't matter, everybody shared equally, right?
We started out, when we signed a little deal, when we first started, we just didn't want to have one guy have the guitar-shaped swimming pool in his backyard and the other guy's on Skid Row, so to speak, Well,
that's
just
the
Volkswagen.
That's the classic Twisted Sister story. One of the reasons it broke up Twisted Sister, because Dee Snider is the sole songwriter in that band, wrote every song, had all the publishing, and that record that, Stay Hungry sells 8 million copies, and Dee's living in the mansion, the rest of the guys are working day jobs, and that was still a point of resentment about that whole situation. And your Canadian brethren, Rush, one time I asked them, I said, how is it possible that you guys have stayed together with the original three, well, technically not original, because John Rutsey was on the first record, and he unfortunately just passed away.
Right.
But in terms of the core, have the same band essentially together for 30 years plus. How have you managed to do that? Because there's only a handful that have. You guys, but you dropped out for 18 years just recently. But you have you have Aerosmith, who I saw today for the most part, is still intact now and has been pretty much the whole way, except for a couple years. And Rush. And one of the things that that Rush said to me is they said, we never let things get too heavy. And there's never anything heavy. There's never any drama. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He said, basically, look, from the beginning, we just said, look, we're a trio. We all, as you said, Richie, live by the sword, die by the sword. We're all together. We sink and swim together, and that's it. And, that goes a long way. Bands that don't have those arrangements ultimately end up having problems. So that's a lot of it.
Or there's a girlfriend involved.
Or something. Well, he doesn't even know.
Let's keep it that way.
I know, but he has no idea where that just so you know what you're thinking, he has no idea about. That's which is really funny if you know that
I just
story.
made that off the cuff.
Exactly, you have no idea this.
That rarely happens. The band, and somebody gets fired. That's very, very, very rare.
I have trouble remembering any of those instances.
Yeah.
It's funny because I don't think either of these guys know the significance of what they just said, which is pretty funny. So we'll leave it at that, Rich.
You can tell us after the show.
It's not a private story, but it's just interesting for you to say that right now.
Damn it!
What are you doing with those guys?
Do you want to go there, Rich?
No. Late.
I saw, what's interesting about it, and I'll just leave it at this, I saw you addressed it on your website, and one of the things you said on your site is, I can't believe how many people still ask me about that, but you obviously didn't have any problem talking about it.
Now we're addressing it.
Well, no, we're not. I'm just saying that people want to know what we're talking about.
And he's going to call me after the show, and he goes, you don't know about that. We're going to be like two women gossiping on the phone.
It's not gossip.
I did address it.
It's exactly. He's addressed it for 15 years or whatever.
Factual manner of how it happened, and you all can read it right on the MySpace.
All right, there you go. Enough said. We'll fill everybody else in during the commercial break. I got to do commercials right now. Richie Kotzen is here. Mike Piazza is here. Mike Levine is here. We are just about out of time. We come back from the break, but I want to play you one more song from Richie's live album, so we'll figure out which one that's going to be to close out the show.
And some more Triumph, too.
What's that?
That's some more Triumph, too.
I don't have time. I have time for one song.
Dude.
We're out of time.
This is Richie's segment this hour. Well,
I'm just.
We're not going to go another hour?
You want to give me a job when I get fired for going too late? Piazza comes in here for like the first time in like a year, and he's booking tours, he's dealing with stuff in Italian restaurants or the other people's sisters. He's got a million ideas. And then he'll disappear. And where's he going? He's going on vacation to Europe tomorrow. So it's like, come on.
You're going on vacation to Europe?
Yeah.
Go where?
Saint-Tropez.
It's tough, isn't it, Rich? What a gig.
And then I'm going to make my way over. No.
And party with the Stones.
I'm Picasso. I'm going to pick oranges out of my hotel room paint.
All right, we'll be back with your final, our final song, and to say goodbye to this week's show right after this.